All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. This is Gerald Glassberg from Pop Culture Cosmos, Lakers Fast Break, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows, and if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And if you can go ahead and like, share, subscribe, follow, anything you can do to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, it's truly appreciated, because look what happens. LakerTom is going to need a new mic now. You might be throwing this brand new mic out the window after today's game. What is that noise?
Jamie, are you typing?
There you go. There. No worries. Well,
and to get a head start on 5 things.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. In brighter news, the Las Vegas Golden Knights advanced to the Western Conference Finals to face. Oh, wrong sport. Sorry. The Lakers played today. Game 1 against Houston Rockets, and unfortunately, they did not show up today. They lost. What was the final score? I believe it was 112-97. They lost to the Houston Rockets in Game 1. Things could be better. Things could be a lot worse, actually. They could be in Milwaukee right now. So if you're a fan there, you're really, just sweating bullets right now. But the Lakers are down 0-1 to the Houston Rockets, and here today to talk about all the great things or not so great things that were part of today's game, plus also as well the Milwaukee-Miami series. Our 3 great guests, as always, Rafael Barlowe from NBA Draft Junkies. You got to be part of his awesome experience, which you need to go ahead and check out at NBADraftJunkies.com, NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube, and also as well NBA Draft Junkies and Run the Floor podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Rafael, we'll go with you first, my friend. Not a good night for Lakers fans. It just came out flat. I was afraid that they would. They did it last time. They did it in the last series against Portland. And they did so this time, but a lot of other things went into it as well. Rafael, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You
froze up on me there.
Yeah, I didn't hear the last part. You said
if you're a Lakers fan, you're not happy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I wouldn't say they totally just came out flat. I just don't think the traditional starting lineup that they used all season is going to work against this team. And Vogel, which, I guess it doesn't make sense to adjust your lineup in the first game when you were the better team, but they just had no answer for Harden in the first half. And then once he got going, it just kind of opened everything else up. And then Houston just outplayed them, and they got their third score out of Eric Gordon, and that's what the Lakers didn't have. And I think it's going to be tough because Houston is going to hunt Kuzma out, just like I had mentioned yesterday. When he's on the court, they're going to attack him, and it's going to be Vogel's going to have to decide: do we live with Kuzma getting attacked on defense, and then if you take him out, then you don't have a third scorer that I think the Rockets are going to respect. So,
yeah, that's also the thing. When you talk about not having a reliable third scorer, this is something that we've talked about endlessly on this show. And when it rears its ugly head, it does so very well. And unfortunately, it was a bad thing to go for, because you don't have anyone on the Lakers to rely on outside of those 2 superstars, which if they're only having an average game for them, that's not good enough.
Yeah, on paper they looked good, but if you just look at the box score, you think LeBron and AD, they look decent. But in the fourth quarter, when the game was on the line, they didn't do much at all.
No, they didn't do much at all, indeed. Here today also as well for their thoughts on today's game, plus also again Milwaukee and Miami, with Milwaukee down 0-3. Jamie Sweet, he's one of the blog editors for Lakerholics.com. Be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com. Your assessment on the Lakers, I think Rafael hit it right on the head as far as a change. But then again, we talked about that as far as on the show before, how a change needs to be made. I'm just not sure when Frank Vogel's going to do it.
I would be surprised if he makes it at all, to be honest. And it's not that it's not, a valid stratagem. I think that he's going to roll with the guys that got him here and the roles that got them there. And it's hard to disagree with that. But what we're seeing here in the second round in both series is the teams that can dominate you night in, night out, not in the 7-game series, are struggling in the first game, at least the Lakers did tonight, and Milwaukee for much more, are struggling against these more tenacious, slightly more iron-forged, lower-seeded teams, rather. And I agree with Rafael's point about the third scorer. I mean, the third best scorer tonight was Alex Caruso, who played a whopping 16 minutes because of foul trouble. And Danny Green was the only other player to get into double digits at 10. And that's just not enough Danny Green's been disappointing all year. You kind of hope that he would be more of like a 15 to 18 point per game guy on this team. Just doesn't seem like he's ever going to be that guy. And maybe that's not his fault. Maybe he's just starting to get a step slow. He's played a lot of playoff minutes himself for a multitude of teams. It's hard to ask too much of Danny Green anyway. He's got a very sort of specific skill set.
Well, if I'm paying him $16 million, I'm going to ask him to do a little bit more than that.
I have Luke Walton got paid $16 million, and I don't know that he was worth $16 million. It's one of those things where the agent game is different than the ball game. And in the ball game, Danny Green's just going to be Danny Green. Just because you gave him a couple more million than maybe he's not going to suddenly develop, a great crossover or incredible hops. He's always been kind of a plotting guard for a guy who's a guard. He's Danny Green. He does what he does well. People have the same issues, I think, with like Pau Gasol. I want Pau to be tougher. It's like, no, Pau's not going to be tougher. It's just never going to happen. You might as well wish for it to rain in the Sahara more often.
He was in Game 7 that one year. He kicked Garnett's butt.
Right, totally.
He dominated him.
But still, no, go ahead, Jamie. Go ahead.
I just want, I just think that the main issue here is that, the Rockets came ready to play, and the Lakers really had a terrible second half in general. Just kind of didn't show up in the second half really at all, especially in the fourth quarter. And, it's this is the game to be honest, this is the game I expected them to lose. I still have Lakers in 6. I think Houston's got another game in them, but whether we make an adjustment to the starting lineup or not, like I said, I just don't expect Frank Vogel to do that. I just don't see it happening. The most I could see happening would be switching KCP for Rondo. Putting Rondo in the starting lineup, flopping KCP back to the bench. And I know that's probably going to give LakerTom another heart attack, but I'm just being honest.
Forget LakerTom. That's going to give me a heart attack.
I'm being honest, dude. I'm not saying that it's a move I would make. I'm saying it's the move I expect Frank Vogel to make. And that's just what I could see happening,
Hold on. You know what? For the rest of the podcast, I may just be sitting like this. All right. Also with us today is the man himself behind Lakerholics.com. You got to go ahead and be part of the conversation because, boy, in the next couple of days, there are going to be plenty of conversation. And that's almost seemingly the best time to get a hold of Lakerholics.com because you can troll us there if you want. It is the man himself with a brand new microphone, which I've been praying for months now. It is LakerTom. And LakerTom, always great to see you, my friend. I know you and we always have this little tit for tat on the air and all that, but you and I talked about before about the Lakers opening up, this kind of way. They did it in the previous series, but this time it makes me feel a little bit more nervous in doing so because, again, there's still some lingering effects from trying to go ahead and compete against the small ball.
Well, basically what happened today is that they got outscored, out-defended, outplayed, out-coached. It was a dismal performance. You can't, they didn't give up a huge deficit in the 3 balls like normally you'd expect, but they got out-rebounded. And
that was, I think, a big
and they only played their traditional centers for 24 of the 48 minutes. But the net effect of that is the other 24 minutes, they basically played Anthony Davis as if he was a low post traditional center, except that PJ Tucker was able to push him out, and so he's catching the ball in the wing all the time, or he's catching the ball at the top of the key with a wall of defenders. I mean, it looked like the Milwaukee game, where they had a wall set up for Giannis, and it was the most unimaginative offensive approach, and I give this game basically as a loss to Frank Vogel and LeBron James and Anthony Davis, because none of the three of them really came out ready with any strategy or any approach that made any sense to beat the game. Rafael tweeted early in the second half that they're playing right into the Rockets' hands, and it's true. I mean, what do the Rockets want? They want Anthony Davis to take fadeaway 2-point jump shots. They want LeBron James to try to drive to the middle over 3 or 4 players. They want the shooters to basically hesitate, which they did. And then on offense, even though the assists were even, the ball movement was all totally in favor of the Rockets. The Rockets moved the ball beautifully, back and forth, and constantly had the ball in motion. The Lakers were chasing and running around, and always a step too late to get to those 3-point shooters. They made 7 corner threes, 21 points from corner threes. And I can't believe how many times I just was screaming at the guy, don't leave Tucker in the corner. Don't leave Gordon in the corner. It was a sad thing. And what's even worse about it is that the Lakers quit, man. They quit in the fourth quarter. Yeah. They gave up, and Vogel threw the towel in, LeBron threw the towel in. Everybody threw the towel in. They looked like the guys who wanted to just leave the bubble. I still have the Lakers in 5.
I couldn't wait to come on this because I know that there's 2 things that you guys hate. Gerald hates Rondo minutes, and LakerTom hates corner threes, and they both happened tonight. So
they sure did.
Plus a lot of dribble penetration by the Rockets, and also they rebounded just at a horrible rate for the Lakers. I mean, you got to go ahead and out-rebound the Rockets, who are the worst rebounding team in the NBA, and they didn't take that opportunity to do so. They didn't clear the boards, and you know what? They deserve to lose, and they deserve to lose.
The Rockets deserve to win, man. They came out and played a hell of a game. They outplayed man for man. They outplayed the Lakers. There's not a guy who was on that Laker team who did a better job than the counterpart on the Rockets team.
So I'll ask you, Tom, if you're Frank Vogel, are you going to make a change? Do you really think Frank Vogel will make a change in game 2?
Well, I've been having this argument with Jamie all the time, and he just frustrates the hell out of me because he won't argue the logics of the situation. All he'll do is say, Frank's not going to do it. That's his answer every time I make a logical conclusion that this is how you have to attack. This is how you have to attack the Rockets. You can't, you just can't. You can't play. You can't play four. You can't play small ball 4 out and 1 in against the Rockets. That's not going to beat them.
Well, go ahead, Jamie. You wanted to say something?
I'm just saying, my point being is it's not illogical to think that Frank Vogel is going to coach to type. He's just coaching how he's always coached. It's not like Frank Vogel's not going to turn into Mike D'Antoni between Portland and tonight. It's not going to happen.
There were moments, however, during the Clippers and the Bucks games where the Lakers played 5 out, where they isolated LeBron on one side of the court with 4 shooters all stationed on the other side of the court. Where they basically had some shooters in the corner who would basically pin down guys and open up the middle. But instead, what we saw the entire game was trying to throw the ball into Davis in this low post. And you're just not going to do that. And then the contributions by Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee were useless. They were useless on offense. They were useless on defense. It was just I must have grasped onto this phony straw that Frank laid out there about all of the things that they're planning to go after, in all of this 5 days of practice and all of these things that they had ready to pull out their bag of tricks for the Rockets, and they didn't pull a single trick out of the bag, man. It was pretty much the standard same old attack.
The trick was more Rondo minutes.
Yeah,
That was the part that really
great. Play 5 out with guys who can attack the basket, guys like Waiters. Put him in the game, spread the offense out, have 5 shooters out there, and then LeBron will get some ability to drive in the basket. But how's LeBron going to drive into the basket when he's got AD sitting down there in the low post with Tucker? AD is playing the dunker position. For God's sakes, how many dunks did he get? I think like 2 in the entire game. There weren't any dunks because basically they got 5 guys sagging in there, and they played great defense. So the Lakers are going to have to come out with some fire. And at some point during this series, if we want to win, Frank Vogel's going to have to make some adjustments, man. Otherwise, he's going to go down like Budenholzer is.
Oh yeah, Budenholzer. He is sticking to his guns, and even Giannis. Well, we're going to talk about that game here in a little bit, but even Giannis said after the game he can play more. Funny how that is. Gee, Rafael, myself, everybody else that can see that plain as day. Rafael's been saying this like ad nauseum. But again, we'll go back to that game here in a bit. But getting back to the Lakers, Rafael, I want to ask you this. If you're making those adjustments that are necessary from Houston's standpoint, they couldn't have played much better than they did today. What do they need to do from their perspective to go ahead and continue that? Because the Lakers are going to make some type of adjustments, whether or not it's the right adjustments or whether or not it's the adjustments enough. That's one thing. But we've seen them with more energy in game 2 like they had against Portland. What does Houston have to do to go ahead and make adjustments in game 2 as well?
Well, I mean, what adjustments can Houston really make? Their team is built to play one way. They can't, unless they decide they're going to play Tyson Chandler more minutes. They are all in on this style of play.
No, I mean, as far as are they going to get, obviously playing Westbrook as far as having him handle the ball more, having him shoot from the outside. Westbrook's going to go ahead and do what Westbrook's going to go ahead and do. But, with the Lakers, they might double team more. They might trap more. You might see more of that as far as from a defensive scheme. If you're Houston to counteract that, do you like the ball in the hands of Westbrook even more? Is that's something you're going to be seeing probably in game 2? Because I have a feeling they're going to try and get the ball more out of James Harden's hands in game 2.
Well, that's when they blew the lead open. I mean, the game was somewhat close. I mean, Houston was up for the most part, but I feel like in the second half, they decided to take the ball out of his hands. And
Harden was on the bench when Westbrook went crazy.
Yep, they made their best run without Harden.
Yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying is that's usually not the case. And how much, as we saw in Oklahoma City, where you and I were talking about how Russell Westbrook, you wanted him to have the ball more often because he was making poor choices with the basketball. I mean, this is Russell Westbrook at his almost not his finest, I want to say, but this is at a very good level. I mean, how consistently can Russell Westbrook still play at this level?
I think in the last series he was rusty those first couple games. I mean, he's been consistent. He can only play one way also. So even if he's not shooting the ball well, he's never fazed by it. Like even this game, he had a shot, he got dunked on, he got a shot swatted a few times. He had some very funny lowlights. He had the turnover where he had a steal and he threw it behind his back on a 2-on-1 break. Facial expression never changed. He never seemed like he was affected by not playing well. And they were giving him the jumper, which, I agree that they should. And
he hit a dagger 3 there that put him up by 15.
Yeah, but he keeps attacking. And no matter how many times he shot the ball and didn't finish well, got a shot blocked, he kept attacking. And so I think with the Rockets, it seemed like maybe their game plan was to get Harden going early, and then the Lakers are going to try to stop that. And then once Harden gets going and you take that away, now you have Russ playing with an advantage. And one thing about Russ, he will turn the ball over. You know that. He's a high risk, high reward. He's not a great passer, but one thing he can do is find the corner. And I felt like Houston had a lot of good looks. And they don't really, I guess Gordon has the reputation as a good shooter. On paper, he's not. But Houston doesn't have, like, outside of McLemore, great knockdown shooters. It's just their volume is going
Austin Rivers came to play today.
He did. He had a couple shots in the first half. But I don't think there's anybody on Houston's team that you fear, like you said, you can't leave him open. And besides maybe Harden, but he doesn't really get any assisted shots. And it's just their volume. They're just going to keep shooting. And what was interesting about this game is the Rockets didn't dominate the Lakers in the category of threes. And it was still I don't know if you consider it a blowout or not, but it was still a pretty easy game. And then the Rockets, the rebounding. So it's kind of like you can say if you're Lakers, you can say, well, man, if we dominate the glass, we have a better chance. But then if you're Houston, you can say, well, we won the game and we did not have our big advantage in three-pointers made that we were expecting to have.
Well, you also can't hit 28% from your threes. That's something that the Lakers did today, and that's not good. But the Rockets
aren't they the worst shooting team in the bubble right now for threes? Since the restart.
Yeah, but at least to a 28% level, you got to. A respectable NBA, any NBA team, in order to go ahead and get any kind of respect, to have the defenses to at least respect what you're doing, you got to go ahead at least hit 30 to 33 at the very least. Because when you get into the 20s, they're not going to respect not only just Rondo, they're not going to respect Caruso, they're not going to start respecting Danny Green, they're going to play off of all these guys. And if the Lakers, I know LakerTom was trying to throw at me that the 4 games that they won, that they averaged over 36% shooting.
They averaged 38.2% in those 4 games.
Okay, so you're so quick to say that. That's great.
They did. That's the stats that came out from NBA.com.
I know.
Talking about in the last series, the games that they won?
The 4
games
games
2 through 5.
Yep.
38.2%.
And even with that, they're still like at the bottom since the restart. So it's either.
Well, they were 29 or 21 out of 22 teams in the in the bubble for 3-point shooting.
Yeah,
and they only made that. They only got to 28 on the last day of the bubble,
and that's disappointing because you see, the Lakers supposedly have all these reputation shooters. Maybe Quinn Cook, maybe get him in there, get him some burn. But then again, you can't do that because Rondo's there and he's got to get his minutes. So.
Frank says the shots are going to fall.
Yeah.
And I think they might. I just feel like with the Rockets, they're going to hunt out a defender. So if you bring a guy that's going to come in and provide some offense, they're going to attack him. Like I said yesterday, they're going to go after Kuzma. And they went after him with Gordon. Just straight line drives. And the Rockets are just more physical.
That's Kuzma's, as we were talking about yesterday. Kuzma's weakness is when he's got a really muscular guy who's going to put his body into him, he moves him,
And that's what the Rockets have. 3 guys that
they got 5 linebackers out there.
Well, you stated that on Twitter, Rafael, about that with Anthony Davis. You stated that once they started to push AD around a little bit, that AD kind of, I wouldn't say cowered in the moment, but just kind of went soft a little bit.
He settled.
Well, yeah. He's not built to play against a linebacker all game. And the Lakers are going to have to play him at the 5 if they want to win, which means it's going to be 40 minutes of getting beat up by PJ Tucker. And the funniest play to me was when he tried to post him up and he was literally a foot inside the 3-point line and he could not move him. And I think that at that point, I think he was like, I'm done with this.
This is why he doesn't want to play the 5.
Right. And now you might have
not check.
Yeah, and now he's going to have to. He has no choice.
Well, there's another alternative.
Morris?
Markieff Morris at the 5. 245 pounds. He can, and then Tucker, he guards Tucker in the corner and battles him there, and that all of a sudden then gives you an opportunity. I think there's several things that the Lakers can do that they have showed some in the past.
Because you're going to see less of Howard and McGee going forward.
I think Jamie's right. Frank's gonna play him because they have something on him. I think that's the only excuse that I can think of, that he's promised them 24 minutes minimum combined. But you got to start by, number one, doing the same thing they did with Portland, which is you've got to double Harden out at the half court line. You can't let him get into the paint and getting just up at the top of the key where he can actually take a step back three there. So you got to start by doubling him out, way out on the court. And then secondly, I really think you've got to mix in a lot of zone. I like the idea of playing a triangle and 2 against these guys, where you have 2 guys pinning the guys in the corner. Just don't let them shoot any corner threes. My God, it's like their favorite weapon, and that would then leave Anthony Davis in the center in a zone. And I definitely think that the other player, the player that you want to bring in to take care of the center situation, is Markieff Morris. He's a guy who can throw his weight around, and you can make all of these adjustments. But basically, what they really got to do is they got to come in and play a hell of a lot better than they did today, because they got outplayed, and they got outcoached.
Pretty much everything across the board. Jamie. Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish up. Well, I was going to say to Jamie, because I know he hasn't come in a little while. When I'm talking to you,
Markieff is the answer at center.
Well, again, Markieff is only the answer if he's rolling with his 3-pointers and becoming a distraction to the other team. If he even hits 1 or 2 of those 3-pointers, that could be the difference that could draw somebody out, so that it could open up the lane for LeBron and his drives, or AD, to at least operate in the key a little bit more effectively. If they get one of those shooters working, all you need is one of those shooters working in order to go ahead and free up the space for LeBron and AD. When they're shooting 28%, you know what? They're going to pack the lane like they did today, and they're going to make it extremely difficult for LeBron and AD to do their thing. But Jamie, I know you wanted to go ahead and share some thoughts. So before we go ahead on to a team that's worse off than the Lakers, I want to go ahead and hear your thoughts on the Lakers before we head on out. You're on mute.
I thought I have to agree with LT. All the hullabaloo early today about Vogel having surprises and tricks up his sleeve and this and that was as much of a magic trick as we've seen from him yet, because it was literally the same thing we've seen all season long. Basically the same rotation when the team was healthy. Outside of some foul trouble for Caruso, it looked like any old regular season game the Lakers have played all year. In terms of the rotations, the effort was certainly lacking. And if you're going to play those tall guys, you can't tie the rebound battle. We got a couple more offensive rebounds, and that's almost to be expected. And we got to take better care of the ball against the Rockets. You can't let them leak out. They're going to leak out for threes. They're going to get guys like Eric Gordon off, who killed us tonight. And we didn't have a guy like Eric Gordon show up, and that's going to mean the series is going to be a lot more competitive than it really ought to be. But it's and Rafael made a good point on this as well. The Rockets aren't going to change one single thing whatsoever about anything. Like that, what you saw tonight is what you're going to see every single night. And if Frank Vogel's as good a defensive coach as his rep stands, we ought to be able to do better against this than we did tonight. And it's a testament to the greatness of James Harden. It's a testament to the greatness of Russell Westbrook. And D'Antoni's got the team he's probably dreamed of for the last 10, 15 years. And they're doing great. You got to tip their cap. They did what they were supposed to do tonight. The Lakers did not do what they were supposed to do tonight, and the score reflects it in every way.
Content Creators 805 is here.
LeBron and playoff AD. They weren't there. That's really the big story.
And neither was playoff Rondo, although it's his first game back since March, and I don't expect him back anytime soon. Content Creators 805 is joining us once again on the commenters. Great to have you back watching. Thanks so much. He basically said everyone sucked tonight. All the Lakers players and coaching staff didn't show up. Everyone was garbage, and he just needed to vent. You know what? Content Creators 805, we're here for you to vent. That's absolutely not a problem. It felt like a preseason game. Well, actually, the Lakers weren't that bad in preseason, but they sure really just didn't show up today. I'm expecting more effort. For me, I think the key, or one of the keys, lies in rebounding, effort, rebounding, things of that nature. You can't be even with Rockets on the boards. I think that spells doom for you. Plus, also, you didn't get an advantage on the free throws. I mean, that's the game with the Rockets. They love to get to the free throw line, and they did today. Just all in all, just a poor performance for the Lakers. They deserved to lose, and you know what? They ended up losing today by the score of 112-97. Guys, before we head on out, there again, we could be worse. We could be a Milwaukee Bucks fan right around now. And Rafael, I want you to talk first about the Miami Heat with an amazing fourth quarter. 40-13 in that fourth quarter. They end up beating the Milwaukee Bucks by 15. How in the world did they get this done in the fourth quarter? That was just amazing to watch.
I saw a funny tweet, and it was from a Rockets fan. He said, let me know if your MVP candidate showed up in the fourth quarter today. And he's clearly talking about Harden showed up while LeBron and Giannis didn't. But yeah, Jimmy Butler outscored the Bucks himself. I want to say like 17 or 13 in the fourth quarter.
100% correct.
And it's over for the Bucks. I mean, history says it's impossible. I thought they were going to win this game. I mean, they were up the majority of the game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, and they were up to by 15, as much as 15, I want to say, or 13 or 15, I think, in that fourth quarter. And
it's tough because Giannis is, I mean, he's a star. He's an MVP. He puts up monster numbers, but he's not a guy that I will rely on in the fourth quarter. He needs another guard that can score on three levels, which they don't have. And they're built to win games. And like we've said on this podcast before, is that they're not built to come from behind. They don't have a guy that can get hot and bring them back in the game if they're down. But now it looks like they don't have a guy that can sustain the lead in the fourth quarter of a playoff game because their offense is 100% based off of Giannis. And if Miami's making shots and Giannis can't get the rebound and grab and go and score in transition, what is the Bucks offense? And I think Bud is kind of getting exposed here because he's not making any adjustments.
Kind of like Drink, huh?
Maybe even worse because he still won't play his guys heavy minutes.
Yeah, I know.
And
Content Creators 805 just chimed in with that you and I called Miami to win the series. You guys called that for sure. I was wrong on that. That would have been a good bet. Well, I'm here in Vegas. I could have bet on it. You're right, but I wouldn't have bet that they would be sweeping. I love that picture of the guy. I don't know if you guys saw that in the virtual fans out there. The guy with the broom already sweeping. I thought that was, my daughter was just rolling at that, just seeing that on there. Just the guy with the broom and all that. But LakerTom, let me ask you this. When it comes to what they're doing, Milwaukee, just that fourth quarter just collapsed. They look confused on offense. They looked even worse on defense. And I've been asking Rafael why Budenholzer had not put Giannis on Butler. They finally today put Giannis on Butler, and you have the guy that's the reigning defensive player of the year somehow can't guard. He cannot.
The first time he got a steal. The first time he got a steal.
But then again, Butler didn't care. He went right back and similar to what you said with Westbrook, Rafael, aggressive, stayed on it, And when he couldn't score, he made the right decision time in and time out against Giannis. And it just didn't seem like it fazed him at all.
Well, the big thing that Jimmy did is he put pressure on the defense, got him into foul trouble, and ended up getting tons of free throws every time. I mean, that's what kept him in the game in the first half and the first three quarters. And then the fourth quarter, you could see Giannis lost his confidence in this series. And it because of his jumper, 0 for 6, I think, from deep, and even a couple of those free throws. And I heard somebody say that it's almost a guarantee that one free throw a game will be an air ball almost. And he had a couple of those today.
And he took some threes in the clutch.
He's got as a young player. He reminds the truth of the matter is he's a lot like LeBron was when LeBron first came in the league and couldn't shoot the long ball. But
he can at least hit the free throws.
Well, yeah, but I know. But LeBron had Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh to go with him, And Middleton and whoever else they got is not enough.
Well, LeBron, when he was in Miami, could hit the 3-pointer. He was actually his most efficient from there. It was when he was with Cleveland. But Rafael, I know you wanted to interject something for LakerTom.
I was just saying that Giannis took a couple threes in the clutch. Like, I mean, I know that's the shot they were giving him, but yeah,
maybe they were heat checks, huh?
Slump buster checks. I don't know, but I don't think LeBron was ever as bad as Giannis is as a shooter, because LeBron could at least get streaky. Giannis,
early in his career, people used to always say, and I kept hearing this over and over, which is, if that guy could hit his threes, he'd be unstoppable.
When he was with the Heat, he was really good.
Yeah, but even in Cleveland, I still think that if you had to pick, who would you rather have shooting a jump shot, LeBron or Giannis? I don't think it was close.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's just,
and that's even a mid-range shot. I mean, that's the problem, is that Giannis is really a one-dimensional scorer.
Yeah,
get him anywhere near the basket, and he is unstoppable.
Oh, that speaks to Middleton.
You can stop him at the free throw line, whereas a lot of guys you can't stop them there because Jimmy Butler, for example, you can stop him at the free throw line and you'll get killed.
Yep.
Well, let me get Jamie in this real quick, Rafael. And I apologize. I haven't heard from Jamie real quick. You've got Middleton out there that needs to step up and didn't get it done. You've got Eric Bledsoe, and he's been the source of much conversation all over the place. And, reputation, playoffs, they don't really mesh well with him. What are your thoughts on Middleton not stepping up when they need a number two? Because you see the problems that Giannis is going through when he focuses down on him in the NBA playoffs.
I mean, I think that the Bucks have a problem similar to the Trailblazers in that their best guy is really good, and then the guys after that are pretty good, but got big holes in their games. Middleton, is kind of one-dimensional. Bledsoe is super one-dimensional. And in the playoffs, it's about if you're going to go with one-dimensional versus one-dimensional, which you often have to do, it's who's better at what they do. And right now, I would say that Jimmy Butler is the best player in the playoffs, the way Dame was the best player in the seeding games. He's just got a fire to his game right now that's undeniable. He's got a will, and he's playing with such a high level of confidence that, you got to imagine that everybody in Philadelphia is kicking themselves two times for letting him walk this last summer and keeping anybody else on that team. They would have had a three-headed monster if they could have kept Butler, Simmons, and Embiid together. And Simmons going down wouldn't have been such a big blow if they had had a guy like Butler to kind of carry the load of, breaking down the defense, creating shots for other guys, and just being a leader. It's hard for a big man to be a leader. And I think that Giannis has that same problem. He's one of those leads by example, leads with his play. Isn't the guy who's going to get in your face and tell you to rotate, to call out the screen, the little things that can turn a playoff game. He's just not that guy, and he might never be that guy. There's some guys that just aren't that guy. They're great players. They have tremendous skill sets. But they just lack that one last box to check, and it's like the fire box, right? It's not something you ever see on the court. I mean, you do see it on the court, but it doesn't reflect itself in the stat sheet, is what I mean to say. And I think that Bledsoe has long been like the player on that team that if he could just step up a notch or two, that team would flow so much better. And it seems like in the playoffs, he just can't figure out how to get his Eric Bledsoe game going. You know, again, you're not going to see Eric Bledsoe shooting a bunch of threes. Like Eric Bledsoe's greatest when he's getting to the rim. You know, in a way, he's like Westbrook light, right? You know, he's not quite as good as Russell Westbrook, but they have very much the same style of game. It's based on getting to the paint, getting to the rim, making a play at that point. You know, he's not the best shooter. He's a ball of energy, but he's not even really playing with a lot of energy. You know, he kind of just trots back and forth between both ends of the court, and you kind of wonder if taking the ball out of his hands and putting it in Giannis's hands has made him sort of an unnecessary accessory. You know, like he doesn't complement anybody's game out there very well. He needs the ball in his hands to be effective, and I think he's really, when he first came to Milwaukee, he seemed like the perfect piece because the game hadn't quite gravitated to the 3-point game that it has to this point. But now, a few years in, you're starting to see that he just doesn't have what it takes, especially in the playoffs. You know, you can kind of move on from that in the regular season, but come the playoffs, you can't hide. You can't hide on the perimeter and not be a driver. And I think Milwaukee's. I agree. Milwaukee's done. They may win one, maybe even 2 games before.
They're not going to win. They won't win a game.
I'm with you too. I would be surprised if they win one, but they might. You know, they've got some guys with pride. George Hill plays with a lot of pride. Giannis obviously plays with a lot of pride. The Lopez brothers kind of haven't shown up either. You know, there's a lot of players on that team that you know seem like the regular season guys.
That's the difference. They're a regular season team, and
they're right. They are
a regular season coach, and when they get into the playoffs, they just can't. They can't make the adjustments, both personnel wise, the individual players making the necessary adjustments, or the coach.
I can see Raphael's ready to go ahead and pounce on that. Go ahead, Raphael.
So I think the move that the Bucks made that hurt them in the playoffs is somehow they let Rich Paul convince them to sign Eric Bledsoe to a big contract before he even hit free agency. I think it was $80 million, and they didn't have enough money for Brogdon. And Brogdon is younger and he's better. Mm-hmm. He's a better complementary player to Giannis.
Has more tools.
Yeah, having Brogdon as your third star or your third player is a lot better than Bledsoe.
He's the guy I wish that the Lakers had gotten instead of chasing Kawhi.
Well, I don't think we would have been able to afford him.
$21 million, sure we could. We offered Kawhi $35 million.
Yeah,
that would have been. Yeah, it did. Yeah, that's true. But again,
yeah, that was big. Ahead. That was. I mean, at least let him go to free agency and test the market, maybe. But I don't think he was going to get $80 million.
That's the problem. That's obviously what Rich sold him on.
Well, but I don't think he would have got that money elsewhere.
Yeah, not at his age.
Yeah, and I just don't think he would have got that money elsewhere. So that was a big mistake. But it must be a situation where him and Giannis must have good chemistry. And Rich Paul is a good agent. And sometimes if you're an agent, your job isn't to put the team in position to win championships. Your job is to get your player
in position to get paid.
Yeah, and that's what he did. He secured his guy a contract that nobody else is going to give him. And now it's coming back to bite the Bucks.
It is indeed. But let me ask you this, Raphael. LakerTom says it's all over. Jamie Sweet says it's all over. Statistically, it says it's all over. But do you give the chance, like I do, that the Bucks will at least take 1 or possibly 2 games before the Lopez brothers head to Disney World?
Oh, it's over. I'll probably have the game on Monday, but I'll probably be doing some work and just kind of listening to it. It will serve as audio in the background. It might as well be a podcast.
Oh my gosh, which is what we'll have to do because we'll be reporting on it along with Houston and the Lakers coming up this weekend as well. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going on, and I'm very curious as to how the schedule is going to be laid out. But one last thing before we go ahead and go, guys, is that any last thoughts on the Lakers and what they need to do to make adjustments? Because again, it all comes down to whether or not Frank Vogel wants to make an adjustment. So LakerTom, I'll start with you first. The question's out there. Do you think he will make the needed adjustments? Because you know what? It's up in the air. I can't say definitively yes or no.
Well, I've put my money on this for about 40 times and been shot down by Jamie about 40 times. You know what's scary? If we lose the second game and Frank doesn't make any adjustments, we could be Milwaukee. That's what's really scary. And the tendency of Frank is to look at this series just like he looked at the Portland series. Oh yeah, we got our ass wiped in the first game, so we'll come back and the shots will start falling. And listen, LeBron is going to come out gunning for Bear. AD is going to come out gunning for Bear. The Rockets are going to have a hard time playing the same level of intensity. We're not going to lose the rebounding battle again. We're not going to lose the points in the paint again. We're going to shoot better than 28% from deep. Our defense is going to be a lot better. So, it's that whole, let's, go with it, go to the dance with the girl that got you there. And like we were saying before, if the girl that got you there was doing waltzes and all of a sudden it's a hip hop dance, you better have made some changes so that you can play the modern game. Because if we don't make those changes, it's not impossible that we could be Milwaukee.
Was that girls that brought, that you took there, was that girl named Rondo?
Wasn't named playoff Rondo so far, that's for sure. In fact, none of our players played at a playoff level.
And
I think we will see playoff LeBron and playoff AD. And unfortunately, Jamie's probably right that Frank Vogel is probably sitting here saying, well, I didn't have playoff LeBron and I didn't have playoff AD and the shots are going to fall. And, I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him put Morris in there. Morris is a fighter. I mean, one of the things that Frank kept talking about when we got Morris and how important he was as part of the future rotation and so forth is because he is a physical player. He'll give you what Dwight gives you, except he can also shoot the three.
He's been awful in the postseason, though. That's the thing about it is that you may have to play him.
Well, but that didn't keep him from putting Rondo in there.
Well, Rondo hadn't played.
When Rondo plays almost as many minutes as Giannis Antetokounmpo, that I have an issue with. I mean, and it's his first game back since March.
We need to trade for Chris Paul.
Yeah, Morris had 9 minutes and he didn't score. And if this is correct, he's averaging 3 points a game, 3 rebounds a game in the playoffs, shooting 38% from the floor, 23% from three. I feel like the Lakers, and we talked about this before, they may have too many guys to where Vogel may keep trying to change the rotation. Like I think Waiters might get more minutes next game. Then he may play Morris more minutes. J.R. Smith. So it's on one hand, it's a luxury, but on the other hand, you won't get any consistency.
Well, remember I talked to you about, what was it, about a week and a half ago about shortening the rotation to an 8-man rotation, 7.5-man rotation that I thought might work out better because you're more inclined, or you basically by necessity have to play LeBron and AD more minutes on the floor.
Yeah, it was really 10 today that I would count before like the game was out of hand. I think 12 guys played. But yeah, he did a 10-man rotation today.
Think he'll start Rondo?
Who do you take out? Caldwell Pope? Well, I think either way, like if you start Rondo, what's going to happen is Russ is going to get the ball. He's going to dribble fast up court, and if he doesn't have a layup, he's going to back him down, and he's attacking the guards. Russ
And
wants
we'll only have three 3-point shooters.
Yeah, and even
And
like
our strategy might be just to let Rondo fire away, because he's wide open, and the other guys can't seem to hit. So that could be the secret strategy.
Because I feel like they tried that with Russ today. The Lakers weren't guarding him when Harden had the ball; they were shading. But what Houston did was, I think Harden would drive, he'd give it up, someone else would make an extra pass, and then they would hit Russ in motion. And by the time he caught the ball, he was already going and one step to the rim. Well, Rondo's not going to give you that if he's open. And then
we got no motion, no back cutting, none
at all.
Anything in our offense. Our offense is so stagnant that it's just sickening.
Yeah, when AD was trying to post up, everybody just stood and watched. And he's not going to be able to post up Tucker. They're going to have to find some kind of ways to get him on a switch, on a duck in with someone else where he can get a quick catch.
He was pretty effective against Harden.
Yeah, but even then, I don't know how successful that was because he wasn't really posting up against Harden. He was taking contested fadeaways, turnaround Jays. And if I'm Houston, I may live with that.
Well, Houston, all of the shots that we took were exactly what Ben D'Antoni wanted us to take.
Yeah. And I'll settle for him shooting.
They have the top right defense in the league right now in the playoffs.
Yeah. But AD wasn't even putting the pressure on Harden where Harden could at least, pick up fouls. It was, I'm going to face you up. 4 guys sat and watched. And LeBron could be a devastating cutter when he wants to. And I think AD, sometimes he shows that he can pass, but I feel like he got exposed a little bit in the bubble in the Toronto game when teams started throwing different double teams at him. But they have to cut. They have to move. But then again, Green is not much of a cutter. LeBron can cut. Rondo used to be a great cutter when he was in Boston.
Raiders would help in that respect because he can also get to the hoop. He's one guy. You spread him out, play 5 out. LeBron then can get to the hoop if you're playing 5 out and there's nobody in the middle there. And Waiters can get to the hoop. Kuzma can get to the hoop. And AD actually has a better chance of getting to the hoop playing 5 out than he does getting the ball on the side and trying to body up and back his way in.
Yep.
You just need to open it up. You need to get those people out of the middle.
Yeah, if I were the Lakers, sorry to cut you off. It's not in their philosophy, which they haven't done. But just how Houston, Harden and Westbrook, one of them are always on the court at all times. And when Harden's in, I think they may sub Westbrook out early. They let Harden run the offense, and then they just kind of keep those guys in. If I'm the Lakers, and it may be too late, but I think Waiters is good enough to carry a second unit in a pinch. Give him the keys, maybe even run some type of ball screens with him and Dwight, and try that out. And if you give him a few minutes, I think he can score. But there's some lineups where the Lakers have on the floor. If LeBron is out and AD is in, I don't think the Rockets respect any of the ball handlers or anybody else that can hurt them. And then they're playing with either Westbrook or Harden. So if LeBron is out, Houston may have 4 shooters and Westbrook on the floor. And to me, that's advantage Houston. There's nobody that can create for LA. And Waiters is the only guy on the roster that I think can create and make something happen.
I agree.
Well, before we head on now, guys, because we're hitting the 55-minute mark here, Jamie, I want to go ahead and make sure you get some mileage in. What are you working on for your 5 things? I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting 5 things. Could one of those things be not listening to LakerTom, and most likely what may happen as Rondo being inserted to the starting lineup? Could Alex Caruso be put into the starting lineup instead? See, Tom's shaking his head already. So you put the worst player in the starting lineup as opposed to the better player in the starting lineup.
I wasn't recommending Rondo. I was sarcastically suggesting that.
Well, I'm not going to say it's sarcastic because it's a very great possibility could happen. But go ahead, Jamie. Go ahead.
I would love to see Caruso start. I think Caruso's the defense that Caruso brings is better than Rondo and KCP. I mean, both. You didn't get much out of KCP tonight. I think he's kind of struggling. He's such a slow starter. I don't know. It's just one of the things that's in his DNA. I don't. Some guy. It's just it's how some guys are. He does not. He's. I think the bubble. The whole COVID thing is kind of mucked with the mojo he had going, and he was playing so well for us during the regular season, and just has not been that guy at all since the reboot. I would not be surprised to see Rondo take his spot in the starting lineup, just because of his age. Rondo's going to probably respond well to starting rather than coming off the bench a little bit. Rondo's a gamer. He's going to do whatever is asked of him, which is why he gets minutes. He does know the game well. He does call out coverage as well. He does do things like set back screens and try to free up guys, which a lot of the Lakers just don't do. Like everybody's been saying, there was a lot of standing around tonight.
ISO ball.
A lot of expecting AD or LeBron to make a great move and get free and just get the offense going. And honestly, I don't know how you could watch the whole season and think anything different was going to happen, because that's what the Lakers have done all year. It's not like we're playing differently than we did at any point during this entire season. And teams just don't change their identity because they're playing a different team, or there's some guys that are shorter, or it's not sport. I mean, I'm reminded of in the 2003-2004 NBA Finals when Rick Fox and Derek Fisher came to Phil Jackson and said, "Start us in Game 4 over or Game 5, maybe it was. I can't remember, but start us over Peyton and Malone." I guess Malone was probably out by the, but give us a shot. And Phil still started Gary Payton, and Gary Payton was terrible. And and we lost that NBA Finals, and then a lot more after that. So I just don't see it happening. I could see a switch at point guard, only because that's not Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's organic position, and he's just not bringing much. I mean, we expect more out of Danny Green, simply based on his contract, but I expect more out of KCP based off of his ability, and he just hasn't shown up really yet. He just hasn't. And he might find something on down the line should we last that long, but I don't see it happening quickly because he's just such a slow starter. I think he's in that mode. So that would be the switch I would expect. One of Caruso or Rondo, and I'm going with Rondo because, again, Vogel's not going to really try to disrupt that bench as little as he can. I think he likes the bench. I think he likes playing a 10-man rotation. I know that bucks many trends. I don't necessarily agree with it. I just think that that's what's going to happen based on who Frank Vogel kind of has shown himself to be. I don't know. I didn't watch, a lot of Indiana or Orlando, so I don't know much about how he coached those teams, but I would just imagine that it was kind of fairly similar. That he rolls with the guys who got him where they are. And, teams live and die by their identity. The Rockets are going to live and die by their identity. Boston's going to live and die by its. That's where you're going to hang your hat. It's not a little lineup change here or there isn't going to, I think, produce some astronomical result. I think putting Morris at the 5 isn't going to suddenly magically increase our spacing. I think Houston's game plan is to switch and collapse. That's what they do. They switch and then they collapse and they clog the paint and they challenge the refs to make calls on both ends, and that's your opponent. So you got to adjust to that. And whether Frank does enough adjustments or not is a huge question going forward. I don't expect one for Game 2. If we lose in a similar fashion where you look at the stat box and you think it's competitive, we only, I don't know if he'll make a change at all. He might just roll with this. And that would be unfortunate because I think that there are some adjustments he could make, but I'm not sure he will. So we'll see. We'll see.
The one coach
on fire, people. Believe in Jimmy.
The one coach who made adjustments was to start a guy who hadn't been on the bench the entire season. Was supposed to.
I mean, they're paying.
He started Goran Dragic at point guard.
Well, that's because Nunn was he left the bubble, and I think he had to start him. But he
Yeah,
didn't.
but still, you look at the results of Dragic at point guard has really ignited that team.
Yep.
He's played great, and he's been the steady hand all the way through. Nunn's had some of his problems, and even at times, Hero's had some problems. They've been off and on, where Dragic has been just really steady. I mean, I saw several people tweeting that, that Dragic could get a big contract as a result of this whole thing, that he's really performed well, and scares me that he might be out of the MLE range and the Lakers might not get it.
Oh no,
I was going to say the Caterpillars. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
think he
Rafael.
goes to Dallas. Him and Luka have the same agent, Bill Duffy, Slovenian connections. And unless Miami signs him to like a big 1-year deal, because I don't think they want to jeopardize their cap space for 2021. So I think a big 1-year deal would be an option for Miami. But if he wants security, I definitely think he gets a pretty big deal in Dallas.
Well, LakerTom, I
Dallas
know you got something.
cap space, though, to give him a big deal. That's the problem.
They don't, but I still think the whole Slovenian BDA thing. And
yeah, but I think Miami, after the way he's performed, and if he continues to perform as he performed so far, Miami still is waiting for Giannis, and actually, he's a nice trade piece.
Well, let's get that together in the off season then, because right now Milwaukee's off season is looking very near. Let's hope the Lakers off season isn't anywhere near.
Lakers in 5.
Okay, well, Lakers in 5 indeed. But LakerTom, before we head on out,
I was going to say real quick, Dallas does have cap space. Courtney Lee's $12 million comes off the books.
I know. Newsflash: Courtney Lee is still in the league.
Yeah. Courtney Lee comes off the books, and they have guys like Justin Jackson, Cauley Stein, and DeLon Wright that they can probably dump somewhere else and create some space.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out, because Milwaukee is going to be probably looking for some alternative answers here in the not too distant future. Hopefully the Lakers will not follow suit, but they did end up losing today 112-97 over the Houston Rockets in game 1 of the NBA playoff second round. LakerTom, I already know Jamie Sweet's working on 5 things that hopefully the Lakers can learn from. We'll see if that takes place. But LakerTom, before I go ahead and hit it over to Rafael on what he's doing at NBA Draft Junkies, what are you up to at Lakerholics.com? I'm sure quite a bit.
I've got actually 3 different articles running, and I'll pass on telling you what they are, Gerald, just so that I don't get whacked tomorrow when I'm not with you guys and you try to pick on me.
Well, advertise it yourself.
No, I'm trying to think about this whole adjustment thing with Frank Vogel, and I find it extremely frustrating that part of me is hopeful that he was just really giving the starting lineup and the existing rotations a shot at it because they came through in the last 4 games against Portland. I think Frank has that tendency that, and I understand that as a coach, that you're giving faith and you want to continue to give confidence and build confidence with your starting lineup and your rotations. That's very important through the regular season. The difference is that Frank is a 500 coach when it comes to the playoffs, and he's only got a few wins more than he's got losses, and the playoffs are a totally different animal. So I'm sure that what I'm going to be focusing on is, again, the adjustments that I think that the Lakers need to at least consider. And I think the example of what's happened with Milwaukee is one of the reasons why those adjustments need to be made before game 2, not before game 3, because the one thing you can say for sure is this is the NBA, and in any one single game, another team can get hot, or the ball can bounce the wrong way, or something can happen where you can lose a game. So you can't get too confident when you're down 0-1 that just because you were able to come and sweep 4 games in a row in the first round, that you can do that in the second round. Because the one big difference between the Portland Trail Blazers and the Houston Rockets is the Rockets play defense. That's something that Portland could not do, and that's why it was easy to come back on it. I counted heavily when I said 5 games that the Lakers were not going to come out flat and that Houston was going to be exhausted. Well, Houston right now is probably the opposite of exhausted. They're thrilled at the situation that they're in, and they're going to come out game 2 gunning for bear. I think the Lakers
the oldest team in the league.
Pardon?
And they're the oldest team in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Tyson Chandler helps out though, but
yeah,
they're an old team. Everybody on there is like 30. I mean, Tucker's like 35.
There's an urgency here. There's an urgency here in game 2 against the Rockets that I don't think existed in game 2 against the Blazers. No disrespect. No disrespect to your team, Rafael.
I'm a realist.
But I mean, these guys play defense. They won that game with defense. They didn't win it with.
Well, right now they have. Tom, right now they have the best defensive efficiency right now in the playoffs. So, and it's showing the case. But it all comes down to heart and energy. I think, as CCA 805 said, they need to go ahead and play with more energy and heart in game 2. We saw that in game 2 of the last playoff series. If they play like they did in games 2,
you have to have playoff LeBron and playoff AD have to show up.
If they play it like they did in games 2 through 4, then it should be an even series come game 2. But we'll wait and see what kind of Lakers team we get as we go forward. Rafael, I know you want to close things out, my friend, with what you're doing at NBA Draft Junkies. I know you got a lot going on with everything that you do here. And thank you for your continued support of this show. And thank you for coming on each and every day. It is truly appreciated. I know Jamie sent a lot of great things, and I know LakerTom appreciates everything that you do here with us. So before we head on out, my friend, you've got the floor. What are you planning on, or what evil plan do you have devised for NBA Draft Junkies?
Well, first and foremost, thank you guys for the opportunity. I mean, I get to talk basketball, and I could probably do a 2-hour show if needed. So I'm
don't say that, because LakerTom, that would just get LakerTom would just be warming up.
I think me and LakerTom could do 2 hours easily. We might be able to do a Joe Rogan.
Doing this any day of the week,
We might get to Joe Rogan status. I saw he did like a 5-hour podcast. Like, how do you do that? But
how do you get? And he gets so many people to listen.
Yeah, and but as far as like NBA Draft Junkies, it's the same. Just updating the site and adding player profiles. I think the next one I'll do is Grant Riller out of College of Charleston. I think he would actually be somebody, if I'm the Lakers, I would look at. He kind of fills the role of a scoring playmaker off the bench. And he's 23, so he's more ready to contribute right away as opposed to somebody that you have to develop. But yeah, that'll be the next profile I do. And I have some interviews coming up, and I think we're like 44, 45 days away from the draft. So
I haven't had a chance to listen to the second round of the 15 through 30 choices that you just published. Who did the Lakers get?
Desmond Bain.
Okay, great.
He would solve the shooting issues.
You should have spoiled it for LakerTom. You got to have him listen anyways. Just for that, LakerTom, you got to go ahead tomorrow morning and listen to that when you work out. So.
I will. I'll do that. I'll do that for sure, Jamie. Gerald, can you get a copy of that from Rafael and post it on the site, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll throw it up there. I'll throw both of his this weekend. Tell you what, I'll throw both of his mock drafts 1 through 15, and also as well 15 through 30, both the video and audio versions. I'll throw that up on the site, Lakerholics.com. So look for that this weekend. Also as well, you're going to go ahead and check out Rafael and I. We'll have continuous coverage, even on off Laker days here. Every single day we've been doing it. NBA playoffs. Jamie's been a great supporter, asking great questions. Content Creators 805 has been sensational with his questions and his insight. Content Creators 805, we're still wanting you to come on the show, so you're more than welcome. The red carpet's out for you. Hit me up at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter or LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. Just go ahead, my friend. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and we'll get you hooked up right over here with us to talk some basketball live and in living color right here on YouTube or Facebook Live. But guys, it's been great talking to each and every one of you. I wish it was under better circumstances, but then again, we were like this, 10 days ago. So,
Lakers 5.
Lakers. Okay. That's what I should do. I still say 6. Rafael, you never really quite said.
I never made a prediction.
We never made a number prediction.
I thought I said Houston game 1. Did I say that yesterday?
No, but you can say that now in hindsight. I could always check the tape, but I'm going to trust you. No prediction for me. My team is out, and I just want to be able to just watch with no stress of trying to be right. So, yeah. So I'll tell you what, my friends, it's been great talking to you.
Don't worry about being wrong. That's how it really works,
I'm wrong all the time, so it doesn't really matter to me anymore. But it's right now. I don't want to see the Lakers do too much more wrong because they're down 0-1. They did this last time. Let's hope the same thing follows suit and they win 4 games straight. Hopefully that'll take place. Hopefully they'll figure out small ball.
They will.
Okay. Well, you seem very confident.
The game will be a struggle though, because Frank won't make changes, and then hopefully he'll get scared enough for his job.
Rajon Rondo. More Rajon Rondo. Oh, boy. That's the thing. Rafael, like you said, you get a lot of entertainment from this. Jamie, go ahead before we head on out.
I just wanted to say we're probably going to see like 38 to 40 minutes of Rondo after this, just because,
Mike
he's a coach's player. Coaches love him. He's coming.
And nobody guarding the corner threes.
He could be our head coach next year.
Oh. Well, actually, you know what? I think Rajon Rondo would make an excellent head coach.
Yeah,
a lot of teas. He would get a lot of teas, but I think he would be a good coach. Content Creators 805 has Lakers in 7, so he thinks it'll be much more of a challenge. And right now, you know what? It's not looking too bad at all. He says if we play anything like this, no way we are beating the Clippers. We needed to get it together in game 2. Well, with the way it's been going in the bubble, like you said, Content Creators 805, the bubble is truly unpredictable indeed. One game you think you have it, the next game you don't. So, Rafael, it's been great talking to my friend, LakerTom, Jamie Sweet. Just keep up the great work with Lakerholics.com. I truly appreciate everyone out there listening and watching. Again, please, if you can, support us here at the Lakers Fast Break, Run the Floor podcast, NBA Draft Junkies, and also as well, Lakerholics.com. Please support everything that we do. We are independent podcasters, independent journalists, independent writers. We're just independent, which means we need all the help we can get from you. So if you can, please go ahead and support us today. We cannot thank you enough. Content Creators 805, come on the show, man. Come on the show. You've got some great insight. We'd love to have you part of it as well. But again, anybody out there, you got any questions for us at Lakers Fast Break? But still, we will continue our NBA playoff coverage tomorrow because there's 2 more great games on the slate for tomorrow. And they're going to be Toronto and Boston. Will Toronto tie the series up? It'll be very interesting to see because they were 1/2 second away from going down 0-3. Could they tie the series up? We'll wait and see. Plus also as well, Denver. Can they make it a series against the Clippers? We'll talk about that tomorrow. Rafael and I, Jamie's already saying no, but Rafael and I will be talking about that tomorrow, and hopefully you'll be able to join us as well each and every time out right here at the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Thank you, CC805. Hit me up, man. Hit me up.